name is Marie Rayleigh with Laine Moire Floral Design, working with Minnetonka Community Ed Adult Programming. And tonight we'll be doing the Thanksgiving centerpiece. In your kit today, you will have a wood box with a plastic insert. You will have a floral pillow that you'll need to assemble. It's just two sides that will click together. A little packet of flower food. A choice of a different type of gourd. A bouquet of dried flowers, and a bouquet of fresh flowers and greens. The only tools that you may need today will be a flower snips, floral shears, if you have one. If you don't have one, a bypass pruner or scissors will work. I have spoken a little bit about this briefly in other videos, so if you'd like to go back and check out some of my other videos, at the beginning I'll talk a little bit more about the floral shears that would be ideal for doing flower arrangements if you're going to be doing this a lot. If you don't have anything, a scissors will be okay. It's not ideal, but it will be okay. I think I mentioned you'll also have a pack of, yes, I did mention a pack of flower food. Okay, so briefly, before we get going, I would like to acknowledge that unfortunately, we can't be doing this together because of COVID-19 right now. And so we'll have to do this virtually. It's not ideal, but hopefully we can have fun together and you'll learn a little bit about flower arranging with dried and fresh product. I would also like to just take a moment. Some of you may notice that your bouquets, the newspaper that I used, I would like to, if you can, just take a minute and just acknowledge. You may have a page that is from an obituary, and some of the deaths kind of struck home for me while I was putting the kits together. And I know this is what you were looking for in a flower kit, but given what everybody's going through right now, right before Thanksgiving with COVID-19, I took a moment while I was putting all the kits together to think about all the lives that have been lost. It just kind of hit home for me while I was making all these kits, preparing for Thanksgiving for everybody. So with that, we can start making arrangements. So what we're gonna do first is, I'm just gonna have a nice clear space. I'm gonna put some water in my little plastic container here. You can use the flower food if you like. I already have some flower food pre-mixed. So I'm gonna pour that in my little plastic dish here. You can reuse this over and over and over again if you'd like. You would need to wash that plastic dish because it can harbor bacteria. So when your arrangement dies, if you want to reuse this little container, you can. This pillow, that's what it's called. It's a little pillow. It's taking place of the chicken wire. In the past I've used chicken wire, but these are a new product and they're really fun to work with. You can use them as a pillow, or you can have them separate and use them. You can put them in a vase, on top of a vase, using just one half, or inside of a vase, in the bottom of the vase. So we're going to be using this in our container. It doesn't fit perfectly, so we're just going to set that in. All it's really doing is helping us lock the stems in place so they don't lift up and fall out of the vase. So I'm just going to put that in here, and then with this tape, if you want, you don't have to. I am just going to attempt to put one piece of tape just right across the top of my box. It might not stick because it's a wood box, but we'll see. We'll be covering that tape so you won't see it. Yeah, I think that's on there pretty good. All right. Just in case that little pillow does decide to lift up, this piece of tape will hopefully catch it. If you want to put that in your plastic container first, probably would be good. Put the pillow in the plastic, tape it down, and then put it in your vessel in the wood box, and then fill it with water. But this will work too. So that's ready to go. I'm going to set my gourd off to the side. We're going to start with the fresh product. I'm just going to open that paper. I'm going to move my dried stuff off to the side for now. We'll be using that last. So in my paper, I have some bay leaves, not the kind you want to eat, because they've been grown for the purpose of floral arranging, so they have some chemicals on them. but they smell really good. So I have some bay leaves, a couple different pieces. I have boxwood, a couple different size pieces. There's another bay leaf. Boxwood. You'll have a bunch of eucalyptus. 3 roses. 2 mums. Hypericum berries, which look kind of like cranberries, so that's fun. And then some magnolia. So, we're going to start by doing our greens. I always start arrangements with greens. If you're doing an arrangement without greenery, then you'd be starting in a different way. But we are doing greenery in this arrangement, so we're going to start with our greens. And what that's going to do is it's going to help us get our shape of our arrangement. So some of these leaves aren't going to make it into this arrangement. I'm going to end up having to break them off because they're just a little big. But we're going to try this first. So I have this one stem. You might have one stem, you may have 2 stems. It kind of depends on how each stem is sized out. So if you don't have the same amount as me, that's okay. It has more to do with the actual volume of each type of product you have. But I'm going to start like this. I'm cutting my magnolia into pieces. And I'm doing that because I want to be able to use it at the right height. And if I were to leave it long like this, I can only use it in one place and it would be like this big chunk and it wouldn't look very good. So I'm cutting it down. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm looking at where all the leaves are, looking to see if there's a place where I could cut this stem where I'd still be able to use the main portion of the top here and also the bottom. So I'm actually going to cut right above this leaf. So now these 4 on here. And I have enough stem on this piece left that if I need to, I can rip off a couple of those leaves. I'm going to save those for later. We have an idea that we can do with those. We don't want any leaves going below our water line, so I want to make sure I have enough stem that when I put this in my arrangement, I'm not putting leaves into the water. So I have that piece. I have this. I'm going to pull out this one. So I have those. This is pretty long. I'm going to cut it down right now. I have this one. I'm going to rip this leaf off, save it for later. And I have this one already. So I'm going to start with my magnolia. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my vase right to the back of the table here so I can kind of see what I can do is I can hold my stem. I can put it off the back of the table here and I can move it up and down so I can decide where I think I'm going to need to cut it. Knowing that the bottom of the box is a little bit off the table, I'm going to cut just above where it was meeting the table. And I'm going to use that little flower pillow like this so my leaves will stay where they are. So now this one I had already pre-cut, so we're good. I'm just going to start putting these in. There's really no rhyme or reason to where I'm doing this. I'm just, because these are such big leaves, I'm actually going to pull that one off too. I am just trying to give a good base. And I think with this one, I'm going to go right down through the center. Now, like I said, we're all going to have very different leaves, so our leaves are going to do different things. So right now, all of my green is up, and all of my copper colored part of the leaf is down. So I think I might actually just turn this one a little bit so I can see the different colors from different sides. I don't want them all green on the top, because then I don't get to see that pretty copper. Alright, so I've got my magnolia in there, and it's all locked in place because of that little pillow. Now I'm going to move on to my boxwood. So some of your boxwood might already be cut down to a good size. You may need to do a little more trimming. So I have this nice piece of boxwood. I don't want any leaves going into that water, so I'm just going to pull off some of those leaves. And this already pre-cut, so I'm just going to stick this one in here. It doesn't always have to go into the pillow, so if you're needing to go next to the pillow, that is fine as long as it is touching the water and is down in the water. So I have this piece. Now this piece is a little long. I'm not sure if I'm going to want to leave it that big because it'll make my arrangement really long. So now, if I want my arrangement long and narrow, say I'm putting this on a rectangular table and I'm going to put it in the center, so I want it to span the length of my table, I might want to leave this long, and I could stick it in right here like this and make it long on this side. It'd be a little short on this side, but that's okay. I have other greens. Maybe I'm going to make this long on the other side with my bay leaves or with my eucalyptus. So let's start with this. Let's start by, I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. And I'll put this boxwood in on this side. So it's a little sticking out a little bit wider on this side because it's going to be wide. Now if I was going to do a round table or a square table, I might not want to have it be an oblong shape. I might want it to keep it pretty uniform in like a circle. So I'd want to cut this shorter so they were all sticking out at roughly the same distance from the center of my box. I'm not going to use all my boxwood right away. I'm going to leave a couple sprigs just in case I need to go back and fill in later. I'm going to do just a little more than half of it. Making sure I pay attention to every side of my arrangement. So I'm going to leave those 2, and I'll use these 3. No leaves below the water line. So I'm just ripping those off. You can cut them off if you need to. Fresh cut. Stick this in here. All right. Boxwood likes to stick straight up, so if you have a way, you can put them in sideways because of that pillow, as long as they're in the water. That one wasn't in the water, so there we go. I fixed it. Now it's in the water. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to move on to my bay leaves. So some of your pieces, like I said, might already be cut to a pretty good length, but we have to strip off those leaves that are going to go below the water. And again, I'm just going to just place these throughout my arrangement. Cutting them at lengths that will allow me to keep this shape that I'm going for, this kind of oblong shape. Some of my pieces have these little berries from the dates, the little seed pods. They're really cool. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. So if you have a piece like this that's very long, we're gonna end up having to cut it down unless you want it to stick way out the sides, which is totally up to you if you want it to be really long. I don't want mine to be really long, I only have 4 people at my table this Thanksgiving, so it's not going to be a very large table. So what I'm going to do with this, so I'm going to look to see if there's a place along here that I could cut it in half. And I do. I have this perfect place, actually, right here. There's this kind of like an empty space. So I'm going to cut above that last leaf. So I have a little bit of stem on this piece. And then I have enough here where it still is a pretty piece. So I'm going to strip these leaves off. Oh my gosh, those smell so good. I hate to throw those away. I might pick those back up and just put them somewhere in my house because they smell so good. I'm just going to see here. I'm going to look from all sides, make sure. If you need to get down, like low like this, and turn your centerpiece box so you can see all the different sides. See how you're going to see it? You know, I almost threw these away. I'm going to save those. Those smell so good. Put this one here. You know, I have this leaf right here, this magnolia leaf that's like really sticking out far. I'm not sure I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to let it be for now. I may end up cutting it out later. I have one more piece of bay, and I think I might cut this one in half as well. I'm going to save those. Oh, they smell so good. Okay. And let's see here, maybe right there. Actually, I might save that for later. Just like I saved some boxwood. I'm gonna save that for later. I'm gonna put that right over here. I dropped one. Excuse me. Whoops. I've disappeared. I'm back. Okay. Save those pieces for later. Same with this last piece I have here. I'll get it ready. But I'm gonna save this little sprig for later in case I find a spot I need to fill in. Okay. Now I saw this, I don't really like that, so I'm going to cut that off. It was sticking up kind of goofy. And then I'll save this little piece for later too, with that little ball on there. Okay, now I'm going to move on to my eucalyptus. So I can't use these pieces just as is, they're too long. So I'm actually going to try cutting them down, stripping off the leaves that are going to go in the water. And now it has a really pretty flow to it. It falls really nice. So I can look at my centerpiece and see if there's any spot around the bottom here that I want anything to fall a little pretty. Same with this piece. Let's see, I can actually make that into more pieces. Okay, cut some of that stem off. So I can maybe come in here. Let's see. It's fun to add some different textures with all these different types of greenery. I like to have at least 3, if not more, different types of greenery, but you can get away with having less. I like all the different scents that we have right now. We have the bay leaves and the eucalyptus. Smells so good. So I'm cutting these into manageable pieces since this is a fairly short vase. They don't need to be very long. So like I said earlier, we have the boxwood kind of way out here. If I wanted to, I could take this eucalyptus, or I could have used my bay leaves, and I can extend my centerpiece in this direction with a different foliage. So I'm going to get down low and I'm going to look at it and see if I like it like that. And I'm just not sure yet. We shall see. I think it's a little too long. And I'm feeling that way about that boxwood right now as well. So I think it might be a little too long for me. I think I'm going to need to shorten it up. This is a nice thing about working with something other than Oasis floral foam, is that you can go back in and move things when you're using these types of plastic pillows, or when you're using chicken wire. You have the ability to go back in and change and move things. You can't do that with foam. So I have this one more piece. I'm going to not use all of it yet. I have one more spot I'd like to put it, and then I think I'm going to save the rest for later to make sure I don't need it after I put all my flowers in. Okay, I'll get these pieces prepped for myself, so I'm ready to stick them in when I need them later. All right, we're gonna move on to flowers now. So we have our green base. I'll turn this so you can see. Just kind of put it all over, different lengths. Some are short, some are long, getting some movement. I'm trying not to be too polka dotty, trying not to be super even throughout. I have a lot of magnolia over here. I have a lot of the other ingredients over here. So now we're going to move on to our mums. They're nice and big. So you may have a place right now in your arrangement that you see like an obvious spot that you could put this. But before that, I want you to think about your gourd. Now you don't have to use this if you don't want to. I thought this would be fun just to have like an extra accent piece, kind of that fall Thanksgiving theme. So I have a perfect place in my centerpiece right now for me to put this gourd. I'm not sure if you can see it from there, but I have this spot kind of like right here. And I'm going to use this. If you don't want to use this, we're going to go straight to flowers, but I'm going to put this right here. Now if I wasn't going to use this, if I was going to skip the gourd, that might be the place that I'm going to put my mum or one of my roses, this kind of hole that I had here. But I'm going to leave this gourd right here. I'm just trying to figure out the direction I'd like it to sit. And I think I like it just like that. I'm going to try to get it in a spot where it's not going to wiggle and move. I think that might be it, just like that. And now I'm going to decorate around it. So I have my mum doing the same idea. I'm going to pull my vase off to the edge here and decide how high I might want my mum. Knowing that, again, my vase is going to be another inch above the table, the bottom of the vase where the flower is going to sit. So, again, I'm going to strip all the foliage. And it's going to start getting kind of tight, sticking in your centerpiece here because of all the stems. So just be mindful of that. Here I've got one mum right there. You can see I have one mum right there, and I'm going to take this other mum. And you can put them next to each other if you want. You can put them on the opposite sides of the arrangement, completely diagonal. You could put them next to each other but with a leaf in between. This is going to be completely up to you. Everybody has a different idea of what looks pretty. So you can kind of just move it around your arrangement without sticking it all the way in to see where you think you might like it. I have a perfect place for it right over here. And so I'm not going straight down into my arrangement. I'm going to go in an angle. And see, I want you to kind of get an idea of, if you put it in this direction, it's going to be looking up. If I put it in this direction, it's going to be looking down. So you can even turn your flower and it'll give you a different look. So I'm going to get down this way so I can kind of get a better view of how I'm going to put it in here. And I've decided to go with it looking this way. I have this one looking up a little bit, so I kind of would like the idea of this one looking sideways, just for something different, so I don't see both of them from the top. Because not a lot of people are going to be looking directly from the top of my centerpiece. A lot of people will be looking at it from here. A lot of people being the 4 people that will be at my table on Thanksgiving. So now I'm going to move on to my roses. So now with roses, if you did make your arrangement really long, you could have a rose sticking way out the side like this. You could have it sticking way out the side over here, way out the side over here. Totally up to you. You could lump them all together. I'd like you to just move it around and hold it in different places to see where you think you might want it. And different heights. You know, maybe you want to have it up really high. Maybe you want it to be more of a statement and creating a line. I'm going to keep mine fairly short and tight into my centerpiece. Ripping off the leaves. Always going in at a little bit of an angle, not completely straight up and down. It's getting a little tricky to get everything in here now. So you can see that's where I put that one. And I'm going to move these boxwood around a little bit so I can try to get this rose in. I may need to lift up my gourd just so I can get my rose in, because it's getting a little bit tricky to work around all those stems. There we go. And I have one more rose. So here's a dilemma, right? I have one rose here, one rose here. I could put one here, but it would start getting a little bit polka dotty. So what I'm thinking is I might actually keep both of my roses together over here by my gourd. I'll turn it so you can see what I'm talking about. I could put it over here, but then I'd be 1, 2, 3, and I'm not a huge fan of doing that. So I'm gonna lift up my gourd again. Might need to move this rose a little bit to make room. There we go. I like that. I like that a lot. Put my gourd back in there. Okay, it turned a little from the way I'd originally had it. There we go. Okay. So I have my 2 roses together and my mom's on either side, 1 rose over here. Now I'm going to come in with this lovely little hypericum berry that looks like cranberries. Makes me want to eat some relish. Cranberry relish. I'm going to cut that roughly the same length that I've been cutting everything else, and I'm going to look for a fun place to put that. So now you could decide, well, if I put it by my gourd, it's going to kind of look like food, like that harvest centerpiece, but I'm going to shove it over here. I have this nice big empty space right here that I think it'll be really pretty to give it a little height with those pretty red berries. As you can see, I put it up high over here with this boxwood that's sticking up. So now this boxwood's kind of wrapping this way, and I don't really like how that's working. So I'm going to cut that one piece out. Oh, I feel so much better about it now. I'm going to strip those leaves off, and I'm going to cut that little sprig right in here. There. I didn't like how it was sticking up in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't doing anything for me. So I have all my fresh stuff in here. So now I'm going to move on to my dried stuff. We have a lot of really cool dried stuff today. We have some broom corn. So I have 2 pieces because they're very small. You might have 2 pieces, you might have 1 very full piece. I just have this, I have 2 pieces because individually they're quite small. So I'm going to use them together. I have to decide, you know, I've kind of gone oblong, so which side do I want it? This side's already pretty heavy, so I'm thinking I'm going to add them onto this side. Again, so these don't have to be in the water because they're dried, so I don't have to worry about shoving them all the way down. If I want to cut the stems, and then just find a way to shimmy them in here. They don't, like I said, they don't have to be in the water. They can kind of go diagonally right through the center of my centerpiece. So by doing that, if I'm just kind of pushing it in sideways, just straight across through everything, I don't have to worry about it sticking up like this. Because the pretty thing about this broom corn is how it falls so nice. So I'm just kind of threading it through everything, right through my centerpiece, kind of trying to get it underneath everything. There we go. Oh. Didn't quite like how that went in there. So I have two, so I'm having to do two at once, but you most likely only have one piece, so yours will just go in at one time. So there, I've got my broom corn in there. I'm gonna move some of the foliage around so it mixes in with that broom corn. Not sure I like how that magnolia leaf is sticking up, so I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna cut it out. There we go. So I had saved some other ones. These magnolia are gonna dry pretty nice anyway, so I'm gonna see if I have a smaller leaf that I can tuck in there. And I do. I have a nice leaf that's a little bit smaller that I can go back in and tuck in there. There we go. Okay, moving on. So I've got my broom corn in there. Now, if you don't want to use all this, you don't have to. You could make a separate arrangement with all your dried flowers if you don't want to add it. I just wanted to give you the option of adding some fun colors if you'd like. So I have these purple feather celosia. I have some coxcomb celosia. It looks like a brain. We have these scabiosa pods. These are allium, so like a wild onion, the seed pod of a wild onion. The fern. So these are when you have ostrich ferns, and in Minnetonka we get a lot of ostrich ferns in the shade. These are all the little brown things that stick up, holds all the spores and everything. So they can get a little bit messy, but I think I've cleaned them and shaken them enough where they're not going to be dropping too much. And then I have another celosia. All these little balls. These little orange things. There we go. There's some straw flowers. So I have white, you might have red, you might have purple, you might have pink. It's the same with this feather celosia. Yours might be purple or yours might be kind of like a salmon color. And then last we have these billy balls, these cresspedia. Again, if you don't want to use anything in your centerpiece, you don't have to use all of it. These are really pretty just in a vase. They'll last forever. All these dried flowers will last forever. They're preserved. They've been hanging, so you can use them in any way you'd like. For the sake of teaching you, I'm going to use everything. It's going to be a very colorful Thanksgiving centerpiece. So I'm going to start with this celosia. Again, we don't need this stem to go in the water, so you don't have to worry about leaving it long and getting it in there. If anything, you can cut it shorter and just set it in where you'd like it. So I'm looking to see if there's any big holes, any big spaces, because this is a fairly large flower that I can fill those holes. So I'm going to cut it fairly short because I don't need it in the water. And I don't need it to be getting moldy in the water either. So let's see here. I'm going to get down low and I'm going to look and see. And I have this perfect place for it right over here by my rose. And I'll turn it so you can see. Tucked it in nice and tight. I put it right here by my rose. I think I'm going to put the other one on the other side of my arrangement. I have a good place for it right over here by my mom. And so I'm just moving some of the greenery around, and I'm going to tuck it in here. I might cut it a little shorter. Again, they don't have to go in the water, so as long as they're just in there, they're not going to fall out. Okay, so I've just kind of set it right here between my mum and my rose. Rose is here. My mom's getting a little bit smushed by these magnolias. Let's see if I can move them. There we go. All right. So now I have these feather celosia. I think I might put those pretty close to where I had put the coxcomb. Right next to it, right there. I think right next to my broomcorn there. I'm going to use these ferns. So at this point, you can kind of just decide which one you want to use and if you want to use any of it. I'm going to stick these in, like I said, kind of across. If I don't like it, I can always cut it shorter. And try to lift up this eucalyptus, and maybe it's going to act as a little bit of a support for me. And I can have that eucalyptus kind of fall around the sides of that fern frond. There we go. I'm going to put both of them on the same side. I'm not going to divide them out. I'm going to keep them together kind of at different heights. So I put 1, 2 like this. And let's see. Let's move on to, I'm going to use this straw flower. I cut those stems pretty short. I'm going to take off some of these dried leaves. Not very pretty. I do like those flowers. So some of these have gone to seed entirely. So you see there's this like fluff. You can leave that there if you'd like, and you pull it off. I'm going to leave it. I really like it. You could take those seeds and throw them in, put them in a little container and throw them in your garden next year and grow your own straw flowers. I'm going to cut this really short. Kind of tuck this little dried thing in here. Next to my gourds, there we go. And then let's see, I'm going to put this one on this side. And I use my little scabiosa pods. Kind of left a little bit of a void right here by my gourd, so I think I might put some of them in. Tuck them around this gourd right here. Let's see. Let's see what I'm thinking about that. Yeah. Maybe I'll do another one. Down there. Right under my roses here. So that is a spot, I'm noticing now that I'm looking at it, that it's kind of empty right underneath where I put that gourd. So I have saved all of this stuff, these little clippings. And what I think I'll do is I'll take this piece of eucalyptus and I'm gonna show you what I'm doing. So I'll have this like kind of an empty space right here in front of my gourd. So I'm just gonna lift up my gourd a little bit, maybe stick some more of that eucalyptus underneath it, maybe even a little bit more, or here, one of my pieces of, this is a good one, this little ball here, this piece of bay leaf that I saved. I can try to get it under there, under that gourd. There we go. See if I like it more now. Yes, it needed something under there, kind of hugging the underside. I'm going to even put a little bit more of my extra sprigs of eucalyptus under there. It's just looking a little empty in front of the box right there. There we go. So I have these little allium. And so some of these things you might choose, you want to have sticking up high. So I might want to have an allium. Maybe I want the allium coming up over here. Maybe I want those up here higher. I'll put them right next to each other, kind of high here like this. I like that. as I'm moving my gourd a little bit, turning it in different ways, seeing I might like it in a different way. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Let's see, just getting down to the last things. I'm leaving these little things, they're called floaters. When you have flowers that can float up high above everything, I leave those to last because they're usually the hardest things to get in. They're the most delicate and breakable. So I want to make sure I'm not shoving a bunch of other really heavy-duty stems in there. You know, I'm just not sure I want to put these in here. So I think I'm going to leave those out for now. If you want to put yours in, you can. I'm just not really feeling it today. Now I have these lovely billy balls. It's Cresspedia. And I had already kind of gone up with the allium, so I'm going to just continue that idea. And I'm leaving these a little bit long. These again are like kind of like my floaters. They're kind of fun. Again, they don't have to go all the way into the water. There we go. I've left 2 up high, and then I think I'm going to leave 1 way over here. Like this. Now, so if I was going to use this gomphrena, orange, you may have purple. If I was going to use this gomphrena, I probably would end up, I think what I'll do is I'll end up cutting it fairly short. Now that I'm looking around, seeing kind of like, I'm going to cut it really short, and I'm not going to have it be a floater since I have those Cresspedia. Now that I put those in there, now I see another place that I can put all these little gomphrena. So I'm going to put them down here. I have these kind of an empty spot that I neglected because I didn't turn my centerpiece around, so I'm going to get down low. And I'm putting those gomphrena, kind of keeping them short and tight, and trying to create the idea of it being 1 flower by using 3 together and keeping them all at roughly the same height, tucking them in all together. And I might have a couple places throughout my centerpiece that I can do that. For example, right here in front of this gourd here. So I'll put those in there, and then I'll turn it back around for you so you can see what I mean. So I'm going to use those gomphrena all together. And it's a lot easier for me to see what I'm doing when I get down like this, as opposed to standing above it and trying to figure out how to get them in there from above. So I have a couple left. There, I like that. I like how they added a little bit of fun texture right there. I had put this scabiosa in there, but I just am not a fan of where I put it. So I'm going to move it right over here, I think. There we go. I have 2 more of these. I think I'll try to use those together somewhere. My guess is I'm going to need to do it over here. Yep. Right over here. So I'm going to use those together on this side. No, I think I've used everything. Again, you don't have to use everything if you don't want to. If there's something in the bouquets you don't like, you don't have to use it. I gave you quite a bit of stuff, so you might even have a hard time getting everything in. Like me, I'm having a hard time getting this one last gomphrena in here. But I think I've succeeded. There we go. So, I'm going to clear off my space. I still have these couple pieces, and what I think I might end up doing is I have this last piece of boxwood, and I feel like this is kind of like an empty zone, so I think I'm going to add a little bit of interest with that gourd there. With this, I have these flat magnolia leaves that, I think, there we go, that added just that little bit of contrast of the gourd against the magnolia leaf. And if I can get 1 more little chunk of bay leaf in there, I think I'll try. Keep it pretty short so it's not hanging around really high on that gourd, but still gives us a little bit more texture. Kind of brings that gourd in. There we go. And I have have a little bit extra, but I don't have to use it. I'm not going to use it if I don't need it. So, we'll clear this off. Hopefully you can see. So there we go. There is our Thanksgiving centerpiece. So I used everything. Again, if you don't want to use everything, if you don't want to use a gourd, you don't have to. You could just fill that area in with flowers. Try to challenge yourself to have something sticking up. If you don't like that look, you can stick them all the way down inside your centerpiece. So this one is long and lean. You could do something that's a little more circular just by trying to keep all your greens initially the same distance from the inside of your box. So now we talked about, here's the centerpiece. So we have all these extra magnolia leaves. You may have some extra. They make really fun place cards at your table. You could also, if you like, you could just lay them out on your table with some candles, alternating copper side up versus green side up. You could put some tea lights out with them. Or, you know, so this kind of like this kind of extends your centerpiece by laying leaves out next to it. It makes it look longer. The other option would be, if you don't want to extend it too much, or if you did something round, is you can take those leaves, you can either alternate them or do them all the same color. I couldn't quite get it around. There we go. I alternated them. And then you could put your centerpiece right on top of the leaves, like that. Or you can just throw them away. But just something to do with all your scrap. It's the same thing with your extra bay leaves if you save them, is you could maybe tie them together and make a pretty little place setting bundle. They just smell so good, so they would make a really nice addition to your table. And that kind of ends the Thanksgiving centerpiece class. So I hope you learned something. I hope you're really happy with the centerpiece you made. And I hope you have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.